So because of the obsession with adopting the transfer strategy of clubs like Brighton by signing young players and banking on potential, but instead of signing them for fees based on their current ability, essentially paying the fee that they would be worth if they did hit their potential, United are almost certainly going to finish in the bottom half this season, which is a huge financial hit in terms of European football, Premier League prize money and sponsorship. And so I think this summer United are going to have to enact some austerity measures to clean up our financial situation. And rather than starting with the tea lady and ticket prices, the obvious thing to do is just to sell players in the squad who are on fairly high wages, who you could get significant fees for, who can then be replaced with players who are cheaper in terms of salary and transfer fee. The problem is the board and the fan base seem to only want to sell players that clearly aren't good enough and who we can't get any significant fees for. Getting rid of Casemiro, Eriksen, Maguire, Lindelof and Evans is only going to be a small scratch in solving our financial issues, but the real austerity measures have to come by selling players who actually have value. And so in this video I'm going to be suggesting 3 underrated players who we could sign for moderate to low fees to replace more expensive players in the squad. We're done with this weird emotional attachment stuff with players. We aren't keeping players because it's mean to sell them after they've only been here a year or so, or to give them another opportunity because maybe they will reach their potential in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, we just can't afford to do that. We may literally end up in the Championship if we carry on with that nonsense. But before I come on to that, if you do want to pick up any cheap, good quality current season or retro jerseys, then head over to dragonjersey.com. They've got a variety of different Manchester United jerseys from across the years, going from this current season all the way back to the early 90s. Now this AIG long sleeve home shirt from the 2006-2007 season is probably my favourite Manchester United shirt of all time. As soon as I see it I think of Ronaldo and how that was his real first season where he became elite. But you can check out their other retro jerseys as well. They've got Real Madrid, Barcelona, as well as the international sides as well, and if you use code Atlantis at checkout you will get a 10% discount for a limited time. Depending on where you live, you can get free shipping and 7-day delivery, but if you do want to check before you buy, you can get in touch with them through their WhatsApp or their email, which are both on the site. So if you do want to check them out after the video, I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section, and make sure you use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount. So my first option is a Lisandro Martinez replacement. Obviously we can't sell him in the summer because of his injury, but with Kokonki in heaven as Amorim's only left-footed centre-back options, United may want to dip into the market in that position, and for me Alexandre Ribeiro at Lille would be a perfect option. He is 26 in August and has a contract until 2028, but considering that Lille only paid about £1.5 million for him back in 2022, I think United should consider signing him for between 15 to a maximum of £20 million if they can get him for around that price. And that's because from a stylistic point of view, Ribeiro perfectly fits what you'd want in a left-sided centre-back in Amorim's back three. He is physically strong, aggressive and tenacious in the tackle, is quick across the ground, and so is well suited to moving out into the channels and defending in these 1v1 duels. And as I said in a previous video, Ribeiro stylistically is kind of a blend between Gabriel and Bremer, being an absolute monster in the air, as seen by the fact that in 2,908 minutes that he's played over the past 365 days, when compared against every other centre-back in Europe's top 5 leagues, he ranks in the top 1% for the percentage of aerial duels he's won, with a rate of 76.4%. He isn't as high volume in terms of his tackling and interceptions, but both statistically and from the eye test, he looks more than competent, and in possession, despite having a kind of clunky aesthetic that we see with Gabriel and Bremer, his output is hugely impressive. As you can see, not only is he a pretty high volume passer, but also a high volume progressive passer as well, ranking around the 90th percentile for his progressive passes, passes into the final third, as well as his through balls as well, which alongside his ball carrying metrics backs up the eye test that Alexandro can be the ball progressor on the left side of the back three to replace Martinez's output, not to his level, but certainly to a higher standard than either De Ligt, Euro or Mazraoui. With Alexandro crucially being able to thread those passes through the centre of the pitch, finding players between the lines that United's possession strategy relies on. And given that he's only going to be 26 by the summer of 2026, if United wanted to either bring Martinez back, sell Alexandro, or even sell both Alexandro and Martinez to fund the signing of maybe someone like Bastoni or Schlotterbeck, then we'd certainly have the capabilities to do that, given that if he performs how I think he could, we could sell him for upwards of £30 million a year after signing him, giving us a sizable profit between £10 to £15 million or more, which is exactly what United should be considering for any Lisandro Martinez replacement this summer. Another player who I actually think would be an upgrade on one of United's current fringe players, who is currently 18-19 in August, is Motherwell's Lennon Miller, who I think is actually a better player than Toby Collier, who is 2.5 years older and would probably be worth between 10 to 15 million pounds if we sold him this summer to another Premier League team, maybe around 10 million in add-ons if he goes to the Championship, because I just don't see the hype with Collier. He's far too risk averse with his passing, mostly going backwards and sideways, isn't really the type of press resistant central midfielder who can drop to the edge of the box and aid United in playing out from the build-up, and most of what he offers comes from his energy and his industry out of possession, which really and truly shouldn't be enough to warrant a position in any Manchester United squad. He's also not even that young, having turned 21 in January, and considering Lennon Miller is likely going to be available for less than £5 million, maybe with some sell-on clauses in the deal, I think it's a no-brainer. And it's not even because of the fact that in 2 or 3 years' time we could probably sell Miller for at least 3 or 4 times that amount, but also because I genuinely think he comes into this United squad and is able to compete with Sekou Kone for a squad position a lot better than Toby Collier can. I'd describe him as a deeper line playmaker, having excellent ball control and fluidity in his movement, whilst also having an exceptional passing range and deeper cross either from open play or a set piece in his locker. And he's also more than capable of holding his own from a defensive, physical and athletic point of view if he was to be used in a midfield double pivot. I honestly think given his age, skill set, potential but also his current ability, Miller could be one of the bargains of the summer, as Udinese bid around £2.5 million for him in January, which was rejected, but given that he plays in Scotland, there are reports that Motherwell are probably going to have to sell him for around 4, maybe maximum £5 million, which to me is a deal that United should be all over, just for the potential profit that we can make from him in a few years' time if nothing else. And the third player on my list is someone who would be a Rasmus Hojlund replacement. So the issue with Hojlund is that at best he's a bench option or a backup to a main centre forward, and he also doesn't have the versatility to play across the forward line. But considering that United could at least get £35 million up front for him, maybe even as much as £40 million overall, I don't see how you can justify keeping him when that money can be reinvested elsewhere. However, even if we did sign Osimhen, because Xerxes is either a false nine or at least someone who's going to drop off and play between the lines, the only traditional centre forwards we'd have, or as I refer to them, advanced forwards, would be Chido Obi Martin and Ethan Wheatley, both of whom I think probably need loans for their development next season. And so I think United need a stopgap centre forward, someone who's going to cost under £25 million, but who can come in and be a lot more reliable in terms of their link play and goal scoring than Hojlund. And I think there are 2 pretty good options. The first is Jean-Philippe Mateta. Now, is Mateta the centre forward that's going to come in and be United's starting forward who's going to get us back into the Champions League? Probably not, but as an alternative and a backup to Osimhen, I think he's perfect, because at this point in time, he certainly is better than Hojlund. His movement in behind the back line when looking for through balls or crosses across the box is definitely better than Hojlund's. He can still look a bit clunky in some situations, but he does the basics a lot better than Hojlund. His one-touch interplay is nothing special, but having Mateta instead of Hojlund would allow United to play more direct passes into the forward line without it bouncing straight back. And inside the box, I think Mateta is levels above Hojlund when it comes to being able to manipulate the ball in order to open up shooting angles. Even just from his FBref stats alone, you can see Mateta is a better goal scoring option than Hojlund, as even though the Dane does significantly overperform his non-penalty XG, his ability to create chances for himself via his movement is not as clever as Mateta's, and that's why Mateta, despite not being an elite level finisher, is able to score significantly more than Hojlund. And so overall, as a stopgap who we could sign for maybe £20 to £25 million, considering he's only got 1 year left on his contract come the summer, and then sell him on next summer to get our money back or even make a bit of profit, I think a Premier League proven 28-year-old Mateta is an option that United should at least consider. However, Jonathan David would be the Hojlund replacement that I would go for. Not even necessarily because he's a better player than Mateta, as I do think the fact that Mateta is Premier League proven maybe does give him a slight edge goal scoring wise, even if outside of the box David's dribbling and link play is better. It's instead because of the finances. Mateta would cost at least £20 million, which if we sold Hojlund for £35 to £40 million, would be around £15 million we'd be making by upgrading upon Hojlund. But with David, because he'd be available on a free, you'd be selling Hojlund, getting an upgrade who is better as an all-round centre forward, and also probably better as a goal scorer as well, and this would allow you to then reinvest nearly all of that £35 million into an elite level starting centre forward like Osimhen. Now, I'm not as big a fan of David as other people. I don't think he's as good as Xerxes in terms of his link play, as good as Mateta in terms of his movement inside of the box, but what he does have is a very varied skill set. Pretty good in almost every area, particularly when it comes to his ball progression, as technically whilst he isn't as fluid as Xerxes in terms of his first time layoffs and flicks, you could argue that David is a lot more reliable and consistent with doing this, and so overall I think comparing to Xerxes, he's not as good technically, but he has the pace that Xerxes lacks, as well as the movement, chance creating ability, and finishing inside of the box as well. And so as a backup to Osimhen, I think David would be perfect, mainly because he would be substantially cheaper than almost any other option on the market. And also, given that he's only just turned 25, United could sign him on a free in the summer, and even next summer in 2026, or even the summer after in 2027, when United need to raise money for elsewhere in the squad, even if he doesn't perform above expectations, he could still be worth at least 25 to 30 million pounds, which would mainly be pure profit. And if he develops further, we could be looking at a 30 to 40 million pound striker. And so from a PSR point of view, the deal makes perfect sense. And this is what most people miss about transfers. You aren't just signing the best player, you've got to factor in resale value, potential for profit, how versatile they are, and how complete their skill set is. And for me, comparing David to Hojlund, it seems an absolute no-brainer to sell Hojlund and replace him with someone on a free, who is better in probably almost every area, to then use that money on Osimhen or Gyökeres. So let me know what you think of my suggestions in the comment section below, and if you do want to check out the football shirts, I'll leave Dragon Jersey linked in the comment section and the description below, and if you want to read my articles on Patreon, my Patreon will be on the end screen now.